deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast, brought to you by Texas Fishing Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your humble host, Dustin Vaughn Warnke, author, outdoor writer, videographer, speaker, blogger, podcaster. Really excited to have you on the show, and man, am I fired up. It is going to be an awesome show today. I have got Chester Moore from Texas Fishing Game on the line, and he is going to talk about some awesome stuff that we found at ICAST together. We talk about conservation. We talk about, as we usually do, him and I always get off on tangents of conservation and getting kids involved in the outdoors and industry trends and that kind of stuff. So I love talking to him. Spent a lot of time with him at the ICAST show here a couple of weeks ago, and I really think we've got a great show for you guys this week. I'm really excited to be back with you. So excited to have the opportunity to share this message of hope and inspiration and the outdoor lifestyle on this podcast, and that you allow me to do that in your earphones or on your phone or wherever you're listening to us and however you're listening to us. I just want to thank you so much. I get so fired up every time I sit down and record this podcast, and this is just a dream come true to be able to share this with you. So before we get into the interview with Chester Moore, which turned out great, and I think you'll really enjoy it, I wanted to bring up one of our sponsors of this show, and our only sponsor for this week, and that's going to be South Padre Island. And the folks that work with Texas Fishing Game is the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I love these guys, man. We've had a great relationship in the magazine, and South Padre Island, if you've never been, is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. There's a lot of fishing action going on there. There's a lot of wildlife. There's just a lot of great opportunities there. They're running it ahead in the September issue that I just got today, and it says, "Today I will leave my island, but I shall return with fish." And their tagline in the ad is, "Catch your heart's desire on your own island. You'll fall in love with the tranquil views, the amazing animal life, and of course the very best fishing. Start your adventure today," and it gives the website address, and that's going to be sopadre.com. That's SOPADRE.com, and that's South Padre Island. Go check that out. If you're traveling, love coastal fishing, like I know a lot of you guys do, listen to the show, definitely check these guys out. They've got a lot of awesome opportunities for guided trips and just a whole host of opportunities that you can get involved in South Padre Island. So check these out. Again, South Padre Island's website, SOPADRE.com, and I'll put that in the show notes so you can just click directly and go straight to their website. So thank you guys so much again for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for reading. Here's my interview with Chester Moore. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Here we go. Joining me on the phone, Mr. Chester Moore, our editor-in-chief of Texas Fishing Game Magazine. Welcome back to the Best of the Outdoors podcast, Chester.
Nah, it's great to be back. Anytime I can be on the Best of the Outdoors with Dustin Warnke, it's a good day.
And Chester, I've been on your radio show before, More Outdoors, which tell people how to find that.
Yeah, man, I'm on News Talk 560 KLVI. That's AM 560 out of Beaumont. It can be heard from Baton Rouge over to throughout the Houston market, and also KLVI.com and iHeartRadio.
I was going to say, you can get the podcast replay on iHeartRadio, and I've listened to you that way before, and then they have a section on their website where they have some replays too. You've got a really great show. I enjoy listening to it.
Appreciate it, man. Been doing that show for 18 years, so hard to believe it's been 8. I've been started when I was 25 years old. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we're still rocking and rolling and doing a lot of wildlife stuff on that show. And the technology for radio and the whole podcast thing is kind of mind-boggling what we can be done with it now.
Yes.
A lot has changed, but right now we're delivering something that people can listen to whenever they want, their own comfort and their own, pull something out of the pocket and listen to it. So here we go.
Right. No, that's great. I mean, that's the thing I love about this podcast is it gives, listeners the on-demand feel of radio, that they can basically plug into it and do whatever with it and listen on their own terms. So I think that's a great medium that we have these days of on-demand radio. So
there we go.
That's good. So you and I spent quite a bit of time talking together at ICAST. What were some of the highlights, some of the companies that stood out to you, and some of the trends in the industry that we're seeing right now?
It's really interesting because I had a hard time finding like a particular trend at this show. You go to some ICAST and it's like everybody has X, Y, or Z, right?
Right.
This one was kind of all over the map. And I always look at the fishing lure part first. That's kind of what intrigues me the most.
Sure.
Is kind of the part because I like to fish and I fish in fresh and salt water.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people paying attention to hollow bodied topwaters, hollow
Okay.
bodied soft plastic topwaters. That was something that was intriguing to me. Live Target had some, the mullet they had,
Right.
other people. I was hearing some of the smaller companies talking about wake baits again. Wake baits were a trend 3 to 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. Essentially, a crankbait that maybe dives an inch or two under the water, kind of creates a wake, and will allow you to work a crankbait above vegetation. You can't work a
Oh.
crankbait through the grass, right?
Right.
Um, Not very effectively, at least. Well, I'm seeing some now where there's some wake bait kind of applications for soft plastics and things. So that was interesting. I saw even more emphasis on bass this
Mhm.
year.
I did
Uh,
too.
it was like even some of the companies that have fresh and salt were like putting even more of their eggs in the basket of bass fishing. And I think that's a direct response to high school and collegiate bass fishing,
Yes.
and the increased popularity of like the Bassmaster Elite Series and all those kinds of different things. So that was really an interesting aspect of the show for me.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's funny you get all these bass guys that have their jerseys on, walking up and down the aisles all proud of this. The saltwater guys just have their sandals and their flip flops and their shorts on, just kind of some
Yeah,
beach somewhere. I just think it's a different culture, a little more
it
laid
is.
back.
It is really. It's a really different thing, but it's kind of funny to see how that whole uh, how that whole culture kind of meets together. And Texas and Florida are two of the states where it kind of melts together flawlessly because of
Right.
we have so much coastline and so much quality bass fishing. I'll tell you one in terms of just products. It almost would be cliche to say this, but it's the product that won Best of Show. I mean, there's a reason, and
Yes.
that would be the Ultrex from Minn Kota, the trolling motor system. Um, Pretty incredible what that company has been able to do with trolling motors.
Yes.
You got something where you simply step on the foot pedal, and you got power steering and trolling motor, and then you got the spotlight button to stay on a fishing spot automatically, and then a very responsive GPS powered automatic boat control. I
Right.
mean, think about being able to have the lane, the exact angle or lane you want to fish in it, and it's in your trolling motor. I mean, just crazy stuff. I can barely use a regular trolling motor,
Right.
and you know, and they got these smart systems now. They're just really incredible. So that was one that certainly jumped out at me. And I'm not a tech guy. You don't want me to analyze all the details. I'm the guy you want to see that I can't break it,
Right.
and how does it work? But that one really caught my attention again because of that company continues to do a lot of incredible innovations on all the things that they're working with. I'll tell you something that was really interesting and was a lure that's out there, and it won the best hard lure category by Savage Gear, the 3D Suicide Duck.
Okay.
And this little booger is a duck, and it looks like a little baby mallard. And I've used duck lures before in the past. They work, bassy. But what's neat about it was usually those things look kind of gimmicky,
Right.
but this one looked pretty legit. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
looked like it was something that because people ask me, "What did you see crazy at ICAST?" Well, there's a duck lure,
Yeah.
but
That's
it
pretty
actually
cool.
looked like it would catch a fish.
Yes.
So that was kind of cool.
Who had that
Uh,
one? Who say the company name again? I forgot.
Savage Gear,
Savage Gear.
Savage
Okay.
Gear.
Okay.
Yeah, I love fishing line. That's my second favorite category in the fishing industry's line
Right.
because I think anglers greatly underestimate the power of what kind of line they're fishing for certain applications.
Yes.
Um, and I'm really into fluorocarbon, and there's a Japanese fluorocarbon called Tactical that P Line has put out. It won Best Fishing Line,
Oh, cool.
and yeah, P Line won that with the Tactical, and it was really kind of interesting because everybody's trying to get to where say it's 100% pure fluorocarbon because there are some mixtures and things. And
Right.
fluorocarbon was used in industrial components in Japan, and it works for lime because it has the same light refraction as water. It's basically invisible in water, so fish that are a little spooky about seeing something attached to whatever they're trying to eat.
Right.
But also, it has pretty good abrasion resistance, and key liners make really, really good stuff anyway. And so to see them come out with a pure fluorocarbon, and that to me that has a lot of promise. And there's quite a few different sizes they have in that. So it could be something that the saltwater guy could use or the bass fisherman.
Okay. So both ends, fresh and salt, could use the same, the same kind of line, that same technology. That's really cool to see. One of the things that I was blown away by, I went by Uzuri's booth, had a meeting with them and Duel, those two of the same company, Uzuri and Duel, and they're more into the crankbaits, and they've got a really cool spinnerbait type rig, but they've also, the way that the pattern on the lures, the holographics on the lures is better. I mean, you really, as a human, you almost, you can't believe that it's not real, I
Yeah,
mean, that's the thing, that the technology is getting so good with the patterns that they're putting on these lures and the holographics and those kind of things. I mean, that's what really impressed me about them.
I call that final approach technology. So
Right.
if you're in clear water, it's what's going to give that extra few inches that fish will be able to come up and look at it and nail it. So
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is cool. When I was a kid, the realistic looking lures didn't work. Like I remember buying this perch, and I saved up for this perch, and I think it was at Kmart, a Kmart store,
Fishing
and I
at
bought this.
Kmart. I was
Yeah, it was like,
shopping for fishing gear at Kmart, I should say. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, man. So and I got this perch, and the thing didn't work. Never caught a fish on it. Didn't even the bass wouldn't look at it in clear water. And then didn't you find something that looks like something that come out of your nose, like some kind of just big, some kind of disgusting looking creature bait that looks like nothing in nature. You
Right.
catch fish on it, right?
Right. Right.
Well, nowadays there are quite a few realistic looking lures that have the right kind of action, the right kind of paint job, all those kind of things. It makes it really interesting for fishing because, in murkier water, it really don't matter.
Right.
Let's be honest. But when you're fishing clear water and those fish have the opportunity to see that stuff, that final approach technology can make a difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It can, and I mean that's what the innovations of the industry. That's just one example of them. And I've said before when you and I talked about ICAST stuff, we're kind of in the golden age of our time, and how good things are getting, and they continue to get better. And I mean that only helps us catch more and bigger fish, which is something every angler is. It's important to every angler, I think.
Well, when we go to ICAST, we could do a parody on this, and but you'll interview someone, and they'll be like, "This has got copolymer Z7983A on it,"
Right.
and they're like, "Well, what's new about it?" Well, it's got copolymer Z793A, and I'm like, "Well, how in the wide world does copolymer Z793A help me catch more fish?"
Right.
Because I don't know what that is. I'm not sure you know what it is either. Um,
Exactly.
and then you end up talking to someone, you realize that is something, whatever they're talking about, is a component that helps abrasion resistance
Right.
or whatever, or stops light refraction or whatever the thing is. So we go there trying to figure out Texas Fish and Game, how's it going to help us catch more and bigger fish?
Yes.
And that really is the goal. And one of the things like rod company, people say, "Do you see any good rods?" I'm like, they're all good.
Yeah.
There's a tons of great rods out there. It's hard to innovate a rod anymore. Only so much you can do with a rod, but there's a lot of really good stuff out there. Quality stuff. I was impressed with what I saw with Luz this year.
Yes.
I actually went to a writer's camp and got to get my hands on some of their stuff. The Speed Stick Inshore, really, really good, as well as their reel. What's the name of it? It's a Custom Pro. I think it's ASLP. Got to get my hands on that and fish with that a little bit. It works really good, but a lot of the reels and rod technology now is so refined that if you spend a certain amount of money, it's hard to get a bad product.
Yes. Yes, and I've noticed that as well. I mean, let's say you go to Academy, which is a good supporter of Texas Fish and Game, really good supporter, and you go fishing, you go hunting, I should say, for a rod. You go, shopping for a rod and reel, or whatever combination you want of both. I mean, the technology is so good now. It's hard to find a bad one unless you really go deep into some Chinese stuff, that's just kind of there to hook you, or buy one of those cheap kiddie poles or whatever. That's not the best quality, but the quality has improved over the last 20 years, wouldn't you say, Chester?
No question about it, and it's been something that I think has really benefited the consumer
Yes.
and the angler. Like I said, we want people to catch more and better fish.
Right. I mean, that's our
Uh,
goal with the magazine. But my whole point, Chester, is that, we are the ones that benefit from that. Those of us in media obviously have more stuff to report on and that kind of stuff, but we as the consumer have more to, have more and better things to go out fishing with, is my point.
yep, there's great tools out there. People just don't need to get too well. I've had people come up at seminars and things. They'll be like, "Chester, I just don't know because it's this rod says it's this and this rod says it's that." I'm like, "Well, look, dude, I'll catch a fish.
They'll all catch fish, yeah.
It'll all catch a fish." But then it gets down to, are you able to invest in this technique? And this might be better for you because it's a crankbait rod. It's fiberglass, and fiberglass
Yes.
works better because it's not as reactionary as graphite, and you won't feel the bite until the fish is hooked. And often a crank bass pushes a bait on a crankbait or a redfish. So there's all of those things, and that's what you're allowed to do, is explore to go to the highest levels. And whatever tackle you're using, it's available at fairly reasonable prices when
Yes.
you look at it in the long term, that you can use this stuff for a long time.
No, it is. It's durable. It's more durable than it's ever been before. Which is something that I think is interesting. And the other thing is, like my grandfather, I just respooled some fishing line the other day on my grandfather's Kmart special.
Yeah, baby.
Fishing rod, and or it wasn't a rod. It was came off of an old rod of his. I put it on an ugly stick, and I have a blast just catching bluegill with that thing. Simple pursuits like we talked about in the last show. And but it's just amazing the durability of what we have today compared to what we had in yesteryear, and what our parents and grandparents fished with, compared to what we have today. That's my point.
Yep, yep, yep. It's definitely out there. You can easily become spoiled. You
Yes,
know.
easily spoiled, exactly, because the gear is that good. What other highlights did you kind of see of the industry? I mean, we talked about Minn Kota and Hummingbird and those kind of companies. One of the things that I was really impressed with was, and I'll give you a chance to talk about this, but like the castable sonars, I saw several of those this year, and I only saw a couple last year. iBobber with real sonar is one of them.
Yep.
And cast that out there. They have an app called the Netfish app. They even have a net, Chester, that you can literally weigh your fish in, and it will send the weight to your phone via Bluetooth. It's
Crazy
innovations like that.
stuff.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I'm easily amused though, but I mean, you're a little more cynical than I am about this stuff. But I've learned a lot from you, you know.
Well,
So
my only thing with all of that stuff is, um, who's going to use it.
yes,
That and the market will determine that. But if the market does determine these, I've used some of this stuff. It works great. It's
right.
incredible. I think that for the bank fishermen, if you're listening and you're like me and Dustin Warnke are both bank fishermen.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
both bank
so
fishermen,
you
absolutely.
have the editor in chief of Texas Fishing Game, a bank fisherman. And the reason is I had a boat, I had a aluminum boat for years. I never got a deal for a bit. I could have gotten a sweetheart deal on a boat because I'm an outdoor writer, and
Right.
I want to do. I will number one. I believe in living below my means. Don't make
Yes.
a lot of money, a whole lot of money. I make decent money, but I want to make it below my means. And I also don't want to get to where everything is just about what I can get for free, and I don't live at the level of people that we're servicing in our magazine.
Yes.
So now I just don't have a boat, and I use my friend's boats, or I fish for the bank most of the time now.
Me too.
And because most people who fish, guess what, fish from the bank.
Yeah.
And if you're listening and you fish from that bank, the iBobber and stuff like that can have tremendous impact on your fishing. So those things, which are innovations from a couple years back, are incredible assets to the bank fishermen.
Yes, a castable sonar because it can report real-time facts about your subterranean environment, structure, depth, water temperature, that kind of stuff to your smartphone. And I think it's one of the coolest things that that excites me about the industry is that it makes it accessible. Let's say you're a kayak fisherman. Deeper, for instance, has a castable sonar that you can mount on a kayak mount that goes on the side of your boat. and you can cast out, and you can easily get over that stealthy area that you don't want to spook any bass within a kayak, and have a product like that, basically tell you what's going on in your area. I mean, I think that's really cool.
Yep, good stuff, and a lot of fun as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I love this stuff. I mean, Chester, I just think that this is the like I said, the golden age that we live in. That these companies are competing more and more for market share, and that just makes more of the best rise to the top. Is what I'm trying to say. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of it out there, and the thing in the business is, and this is maybe a little behind the scenes, is there's some companies that are like, they own a bunch of different brands,
right.
a whole lot of different brands out there. And you'll see a lot of these brands, and a lot of them are owned by one company, but there are also a lot of small upstarts out there. There's just tons and tons and tons of companies. Unless you've been to the ICAST show, you may not believe how many companies are involved in the fishing
That's
business.
huge. It's thousands. I mean, it's
Yep,
unbelievable. And the companies that even didn't exhibit this year because there wasn't room. I mean, the
yep.
show this year was bigger than last year. It definitely was. I was just kind of blown away about the rod companies. There are always a ton of rod companies. There's always a ton of kayak companies, which shows the trend in the industry that people are getting into more personalized, smaller boats so they can get into stealthier areas. I don't want to say stealthier areas, but they can be stealthy around areas and sneak into that bass hole that they couldn't get to with the big boat, and that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's true, but something that I thought, in terms of all the stuff in the show that stood out to me, was the fishing industry's commitment to conservation.
Yes.
It was incredible. When you walked into the show, there was an alleyway with about 10 different booths, from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to you name it. And they were all over the place. And they were committed to conservation. You have the Bass University who writes for the magazine now. Those guys have hired an environmental director. You have Costa working with OSearch on their
Yes.
great white shark and other shark tagging.
Hmm.
You had AFTCO working with Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation.
Yes.
You have numerous companies in the Texas area working with the Coastal Conservation Association. And it's really incredible to see the fishing industry commitment to issues that a lot of people don't want to touch.
Right. And we talked about the difference between fishing conservation and hunting conservation a lot at the show. And I just
Yep.
think it's an interesting topic because it is, I think fishermen have figured it out. And I think they definitely have. I mean, you and I talked about that at the show in detail. But, that's the exciting thing about that is that there is a lot more catch and release going on. There is a lot more conservation, tools out there to make releasing your fish and taking your pictures and that kind of stuff. I even saw a lot of companies that were doing, the graphite replicas and also, like carbon copy style replicas of the fish catch. I saw one company that was doing that. Basically an artwork of your fish catch. And I think that kind of stuff continues to grow in popularity.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting to see that, and that was a unique take on the typical replica thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which I've been an advocate of for years. We gave out, flounder replicas and stuff for a long time.
Right.
Through Flounder Revolution and what CCA sponsored in that. We use a place for the Fish Mount store, do incredible work, by the way. But yeah, doing these really cool artwork of your stuff, and
Yes.
photography, and not even that, but like water quality and pollution being addressed, like the big sugar thing happening in Florida over the Everglades. And I think it's incredible. I think it's groundbreaking. And I think the fishing industry should be commended for what they're doing.
Well, that's something I talk about on the show quite a bit is how conservation is so important to the future of our sport and getting kids involved in it so their grandkids can have a future in the sport. And like I just said earlier, and like you alluded to, we actually came, Chester and I actually came and talked to some of these companies that were in that kind of gauntlet of conservation, the conservation row, if you will, of the different bass and freshwater and saltwater conservation organizations. We really had some good conversations there, didn't we?
Wonderful conversation. Some interesting ones too.
Yes, yes, and we got a couple of pats on the back. You did at least, of some of the things you were working on in the wildlife world. So, I honor you for that, Chester, because you're one of the people that really takes conservation seriously, and that's inspired me to talk about it more on this show.
Well, thank you, man. It really is a goal of my career. I mean, I'm only 43. I'm a relatively young man, but I started doing this when I was 19. So I'm
Yes,
entering my 25th year of doing this.
right,
And the goal has always been to, besides making a living and as a business, is to raise awareness to conservation and inspire people to take advantage of opportunities to conserve.
yes, yes,
And that means using the resource wisely. We got to get. I love having industry start talking about clean water.
right.
I mean, that is so cutting edge. And there are people in the outdoors industry who would look at you and say, "Oh, you must be a hippie environmentalist." I
But
mean,
that's not true. I mean,
that
we
and I know,
we
this
love
not from
nature.
that's in the hunting side. I mean, not everybody, but there are people on the
You're
hunting
right.
side who have said stuff like, "I actually did a lecture on jaguars. Talked
Yes.
about the need for jaguar habitat conservation, and I posted it on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Had someone ask me if I'm starting to become a PETA member
Just
because
because you.
I'm for jaguar conservation. And then what kind of an idiot comes up with something like this? I mean, you have to be an idiot to go and I'm going, how do you even answer this? The best thing is you don't answer it because that kind of idiocy just can't be recognized. But
Right.
to think of someone who's like, would think, well, my God, clean water. That's what Greenpeace would be for. Well, I'll tell you what it's for. It's for people who don't want to get cancer.
Right. Right. We talked about
And I
that on
would
our last
think
show
that's
together.
all of
Yeah.
us. But the fishing industry's on that cutting edge, so I got to give them salute. They were more bold
Yes.
with conservation than anything that I've ever seen in the history of the industry. And they're a wonderful organization doing much for conservation in that area. We're talking about Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
Right.
All these organizations. But there are people in the industry um, who just don't get it on that side sometimes, and just think that anyone who dares talk about the clean environment is an environmentalist wacko.
Right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say it here. If you think for having clean air, if you think having clean water that doesn't cause birth defects and ovarian cancer, like it
Yes.
just happened in Bridge City right down the road from us,
Mm-hmm.
because of a water issue where people duck hunt, by the way, in this marsh. I've duck hunted that marsh. Um, is somehow on leaning PETA, you're an idiot. I just want to go ahead and get that out there. I mean,
Tell us what's really on your mind, Chester. I mean, come
if you
on.
think that, you're an idiot. If you think there's something that we ought to just ignore all that and keep pumping it all in, baby, you are far out there.
Right.
But the fact is, most 99.9% of hunters and fishermen support common sense stuff.
Yes.
We're not
Yes.
talking about taking rights away, and that's what the industry was. And they're like, no, let's just use some common sense here.
Well,
Let's
yeah.
get back to the future. We got to really do something about it, and it's incredible what Coast is doing. Their
Yes.
plastics campaign in the ocean.
Kick
It's
plastics.
incredible
Yeah.
what all these companies are doing.
Right.
So it makes me proud to be part of it.
No, that's great. And I just seeing Conservation Row, as I called it, right as you're walking into the main doors of the show, really showed me the fishing industry gets this, like you were saying earlier.
Oh yeah,
And we talked about that. I mean, Bass University's on one side, U.S. Fish and Wildlife's on the other side. I mean,
yep.
there's just people, and they encourage conversation and healthy talk about this, and that's the thing that really, it was engaging to go out there and talk conservation with these guys.
It was. We sat there. You and I talked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife
Right,
Service,
right.
and we talked with NOAA people as well. National Ocean Atmospheric Administration, and it was
Yes.
great because not everybody who works for the government is a commie that
Exactly.
wants to kill you. There are some good folks that are working in these organizations
They really are.
that are doing really good things for wildlife and fisheries, and it's good to meet these people and engage them and say thank you. Thank you
Right.
for taking a job that's not paying tons of money, that's allowing you to use your talents for behalf of wildlife that
Right.
we all enjoy. And the fishing industry as a whole deserves a giant kudos.
I agree.
And It was great. That was inspiring for me, man.
I wanted to bring that up because I really thought they did a fine job, and just the way that they handled their department of whatever they were doing. I mean, all the different companies and organizations that were there were just really about the continuation of the sport. And I wish we could see that more in the hunting world, which we do again with Delta Waterfowl and Ducks Unlimited and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation. But I don't think hunters take it as serious as fishermen do. And
well, I'll put it to you this way: guess what? You don't see at the SHOT Show: conservation hour.
That's a good point. There's no conservation road shot. No, that's
now, because it's still firearm centric.
Yes.
It's more centered on the firearm. People don't realize the SHOT Show doesn't have a whole lot to do with hunting.
Yeah,
hunting is part of it, but most of it's the self-defense and the tactical and all those kind of things. But I would love to see it there. There's plenty of organizations that could do a lot and talk about what they're doing, like SCI or Houston or Dallas Safari or all those. I've seen people from them at those shows, Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl. So maybe somebody listening out there will say, hey, let's do something like that at the SHOT Show this year.
Yeah. No, that'd be a good thing for sure. That's a really good thing. Mm-hmm. So, anything else to add, Chester?
I think that was a good show. We talked about the technological advances. We talked about a few of the trends toward bass and things like that. And I just want to end one thing is on the saltwater side of things. I think we've hit almost a plateau of innovation on what's been done in saltwater for a while. I think we're kind of hitting a plateau. We've done such incredible work. I'm gonna make a prediction, okay? And we'll see how this goes out in the next few years, okay? I think what we're going to see coming in the salt. When I say saltwater, I'm talking about the inland saltwater realm.
Right.
Red specks, flounder, snook, tarpon, stuff you can actually catch in the bay system and stuff like that. Near shore parts of the Gulf and Atlantic or whatever. I think we're going to see a renewed look, or maybe a new look at finesse fishing for those species.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I think because what's happening is, where's the market shifting in saltwater? Kayak.
Yes.
Stealth.
Yes.
And sometimes you can get in that clear, skinny water, but that fish won't look at a big plug.
Right.
But they may look at a micro jig. I think we're going to start seeing some stuff toward that.
So smaller baits and that kind of stuff.
Smaller baits, little things that are the natural colors.
Yes.
The things that are the neutral colors that kind of mix in the system. I think things like P-line having their 100% fluorocarbon, things like that are all going to be part of the game. But I think we're going to start seeing some innovations in sort of finesse fishing like you do for bass and panfish for the saltwater side.
Oh, that's really cool. And that's the other thing I was going to mention is the amount of kayak companies that were there that had innovations that go out. There's one company called Yak Gear that has nothing but gear for kayaks. But I noticed Jackson Kayak was there, and Confluence Water Sports, and a bunch of different Wilderness Systems, and just a bunch of different other kayak companies there. The things that they are coming out with in compact, minimalist ways of packing your gear out on the water is just amazing to me. I mean, I'm gonna probably
sitting there at the Hobie booth looking at Hobie and going, looking at these things decked out and just the design of the kayaks and go, okay, we're there. Yeah. So I think the tackle component for inland saltwater is going to start getting more detail towards finesse fishing.
It'll follow the kayak trend.
I think we'll see more of that. Yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, I'm just excited because there's a lower barrier to entry. You don't have to spend $50,000 on a bay boat center console to go out, fishing in a bay system. If you can just jump in a kayak and put your kiddo in another kayak with a life jacket on and go out there and explore the bay system that way. I mean, it's kind of like, it's a minimalist thing, I guess, is the best way to put it. But I mean, it's a very accessible thing, and the barrier to entry is rather low. I mean, on the last podcast we talked about simple pursuits, and that's something that I think kayaks have brought people out onto the water that don't have a huge budget to spend on a big boat.
Sure. Thank God.
Exactly.
Thank God the industry's responded with that, because most of us can't. And nothing wrong with those big boats. Are awesome. I've had wonderful times in them.
Right.
I hope they keep buying ads in the magazine. And I hope the industry gets bigger because that's good for the business and it's good for people. But for those of us who can't afford it, thank God there are tools out there that we can still use to allow people to get access, like the iBobber or bank fisherman or all these things. There's a lot of tools out there. It's just tweaking the tools for your specific pursuit.
Right.
And
For your Pacific
maybe
pursuit.
one day we can do a podcast on how to bank fish, how to get the bang for the buck bank fishing.
Yeah, no, that's good because that's what I've always tried to do with this show, Chester, and you know this as well as I do. I've been trying to just make fishing and hunting and those kind of pursuits that we do in the outdoors accessible to everyone, which is something you're really big about with your show.
Yeah, man, you got to, because it's a wide net. Everyone should be able to enjoy it, whether they're a billionaire or barely have a dollar.
Right.
To be able to go enjoy that time out there, and all of us can unite in that pursuit of
Yes,
doing that. And I like to fish at the bank. I grew up fishing for the bank.
I did too.
And I think that we could do something cool on that. I think we're going to see some more innovations on that because here's something, if we can part with this. There's also a tackle show in Europe. I've been to
Yes.
Europe. I've seen the tackle stores. The bank fishing stuff they have over there. If the American angler, if the industry would target bank fishermen with the gear they have over there, the educational campaign would revolutionize bank fishing in America.
Oh, it would. I mean, they're so serious about it. There are very few boats, that people spend the money on. But bank fishing, like for carp, which is a story that I'm going to be writing in 2018. Bank fishing for carp is huge in Europe.
Dude, I go to Mequinenza, Spain to fish for Wells catfish, right?
Yes.
And I walk into a cafe that they had there, kind of by the river, and there's pictures of anglers with their catches, and there's 3 walls full of carp. It's like all carp, and there's one little part of a wall with some big wells. And I'm like, dude, a 7-pound catfish. I mean, not 7-pound, 7-foot long catfish.
Yeah.
I like carp. They're cool. They trounce a carp in coolness, right?
Right.
But not to them. And we went to the tackle store there, and almost everything was carp. A guy pulls up, and I got to try to find this photo to check on to see if we're catching anything in a Jeep. You have the spare tire covers with an emblem on it.
Yes.
You might go down here to Aransas Pass, or you might go down to the beaches on South Padre and see a guy with a bull shark on it, or some dude may have a big redfish on it. This guy pulls up with a leather carp on it.
That's hilarious.
And it wasn't just a carp; it was a leather carp.
Leather
you know what I
carp,
mean? It was very specific. So
exactly.
Anyway, we're getting off topic, but it's a lot of fun.
This is good.
Show, man.
No, sure, I appreciate you being on the show, but I mean that just brings up the point of of that innovation and that culture. I mean, just bank fishing should be a bigger deal. I mean, you and I are trying to lead that charge, and I just again, I want everybody to go out there and have a good time in the outdoors. That's my whole goal with all this stuff. So
I like it.
But that's great. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Chester. I really appreciate you being on the show with me again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chester Moore Jr., editor-in-chief of Texas Fish and Game magazine. He also hosts his own radio show. You can see it on, or listen to it, I should say. They have the podcast version of it on iHeartRadio, More Outdoors, Moore. And you can search for him, and he comes on every Friday night, or Friday evening, I should say, on KLVI in Beaumont. And great opportunity to check out some awesome content from him. He's just a great guy. Love reading his column every month in the magazine. There's always something new or controversial or something cutting edge that he's always sharing in his column if you get the magazine. And I wanted to remind you again to please subscribe if you have not done so yet to Texas Fish and Game magazine. Subscription for a year is only $19.95. You can get that at our website, fishgame.com. That's fishgame.com, which is our main website. You can check out all the podcasts that we've done under the Texas Outdoor Nation umbrella. And you can also see a lot of news stories and articles, blogs, that kind of stuff that we post there. I'm one of the contributors to that. You can even search by my last name or my first and last name to get the details on those articles and podcasts. And also wanted to invite you to subscribe to our newsletters if you've not done so already. Again, we have the Tactical Tuesday newsletter, we have the Wildlife Wednesday newsletter, and the Texas State of the Outdoor Nation Thursday newsletter, and that comes out 3 times a week. Easy to get. You can sign up for that through our email subscriber program at fishgame.com as well. So before I end the show today, I wanted to bring up something that's kind of been on my mind and on my heart lately. The last show I recorded, I was just getting ready to leave for Camp Agape, and ever since I have come back for this has kind of been on my heart because I heard a speaker there named Stephen Mackey. And Stephen is a motivational speaker. He's just a great guy, and really enjoyed. He has a podcast called the Plus One Podcast, and it's available on iTunes just like this one is. And so the basis of what he brought up on one of his shows was something that kind of stuck with me, and it's Rick Warren's quote. And Rick Warren, if you don't know him, wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, which is a book I'm rereading right now. Great book in the Christian faith about, life's purpose and what we're set here to do on earth. And one of the things that he says is the purpose of influence is to speak up for those who have no influence. And, I bring up the things that I do in the outdoors, such as my work with Crosswater Outfitters, which is the fishing ministry that I belong to that takes wounded soldiers and their families fishing, or we have international student outreach that we reach students of different faith with the Christian message. We do, there's an organization tied to that, which is Legacy Outfitters. I've had a lot of really good conversations presented at 2 of their meetings in the Temple chapter of Legacy Outfitters, and that's kind of where Crosswater Outfitters spun off. And then also Hogs for a Cause, which is a faith-based organization like Crosswater Outfitters and Legacy that is basically a wild hog ministry, and they basically take wild hog meat and feed the homeless with it, or feed the hungry, or just spread the gospel message with that wild hog meat. So it's a really neat deal, and I've got an article coming out in our Texas Outdoor Nation section of the magazine about them. But, aside from that, the one I just came back from Camp Agape, that one helps kids that are going through a lot of grief in their lives, as losing a loved one, a brother, a cousin, a grandparent, a parent. In some of the cases, they are just really tough to suicides, murders, accidents, all kinds of different things that those kids go through. So the point I wanted to bring up and share with you is it's always a good time to give back. It doesn't matter how broke you are. It doesn't matter how busy you are. I mean, the thing that I'm inspired at constantly through all the outdoor ministries that I do and I work with are that I want to inspire other people to do the same thing. I don't simply get on the podcast and say, hey, I'm doing all this, so I'm just a great guy. It's never been my intention. My intention has always been to, show you, why I do what I do, and why I have a passion for those kids, and a passion for those veterans, and a passion for those international kids, because I want them to love God more. But in a secular form, I just want to give back. And I just have this need to give back. And that's one reason why I started this podcast, because the outdoor industry has blessed me in so many different ways with so many of the different roles that I serve. I want to encourage you to be an influence for somebody that has no influence. I want to encourage you to have, to get out there and do something that matters in the outdoors, because there's a lot of different ministries you can plug into, even if you're not a faith-based person. There's a lot of other good you can do in the world, in a lot of cases where you can plug into the outdoors and do good in the world. A lake cleanup day, or wildlife conservation project, or a fundraiser of some kind. There's just a whole host of things you can do in the outdoors to help the environment, to help raise awareness about something. And animals and fish don't typically have a advocate for them besides a human group, and we see that a lot of cases with the anti-hunters. They're advocating for the animals, but they don't understand why we do the hunting and fishing thing. And I wanted to at least bring up that as an option for you to get involved in something that's pro-hunting and pro-fishing, but that gives back to the environment and speaks up for the animals and the fish that can't speak for themselves. So that's my inspirational time for the post-podcast, or the end of the podcast. I just love doing this, man. I love inspiring and showing you guys what I do in the outdoors, to encourage you to go out and do great things too. And I just love doing this show. If you have any questions for me or any questions for the show, all you have to do is check out my website, dustinsprojects.com, which is kind of my hub of all the different things that I have going on in the outdoors. And you can plug into some of the ministries that I'm a part of if you want to. You can donate, of course. That's always nice to any of those ministries that I support that are at the bottom of the homepage. Or you can simply email me, ask me your questions, ask me what kind of topic you'd like to hear on the show. I mean, we're open to changing the editorial calendar, with new things for hunting and fishing and outdoors pursuits. If you want to hear more tactical, I can have more guests on like that. If you want to hear more fishing, if you want to hear more hunting, I've got a lot of different guests I'm going to have on the show in the future. I'm really excited about the direction of this thing, and just want to thank you again so much for listening. You guys you have no idea. Your comments on Podbean especially, really, they are my they're just my energy, you know, they're just my go-to. Whenever somebody leaves me a YouTube comment on one of my videos or a comment on one of those things, I'm kind of like Gary Vaynerchuk. I kind of live off of those things. I get so excited when I get them because most of the time they're always good and they're encouraging, and I just want to thank you so much. If you've not subscribed to the podcast yet, you can do so on iTunes. It is free. It comes out every other week, every 2 weeks, twice a month, and I try to keep that consistent because I do a lot of things and wear a lot of hats in the outdoor industry, as you know, so constantly trying to keep good things going on there. So subscribe on iTunes or any of your podcast players. You should be able to find the Best of the Outdoors podcast, sponsored by Texas Fish and Game, and just type in the keywords The Best of the Outdoors or The Best of the Outdoors podcast. You should be able to find it. If you also want to check out our feed that has all of our podcasts we've done since the inception, over 2 years ago now that I've been talking into this microphone, that is going to be found at The Best of the Outdoors at thebestoftheoutdoors.podbean.com, and that has all of our different episodes, and you can just click on them and listen to them on that landing page, or share them. And I encourage you to share this episode if you found it inspirational or found it helpful or found it educational. I encourage you to do that, and just love this stuff, man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much again for listening. Thank you so much again for reading, and have an awesome day in the outdoors.